Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into something truly chilling. It's a first-hand account straight from the Maroon files, and let me tell you, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill ghost story. We're looking at a meticulously detailed sequence of events from 2025, taking place right inside a packaged drinking water factory in Susandha, Uttar Pradesh. We're going to map out exactly how a completely ordinary, totally mundane job turned into an absolute supernatural siege. So, the big question we're exploring today is, what happens when a midnight shift turns into a fight for your soul? The source material paints this picture of a very normal reality, clocking in, running the machinery, making a living. But then that reality completely fractures. Just imagine the isolation of working alone while the entire world is asleep. That kind of environment, it literally sets the perfect stage for the sheer terror we're about to unpack. Let's ground ourselves in the facts first. Our main subject here is Amit Prajapati. He's a night shift worker at this drinking water facility in 2025. Now, what's incredibly interesting about this setup is the sensory environment. Amit was running this massive bottle-blowing machine around 11:30 p.m., and this machinery, it was deafeningly loud. Think about how vulnerable you feel when you absolutely cannot hear a single thing around you. That intense noise effectively isolated him. He couldn't hear the outside world at all. He was just trapped in this giant bubble of mechanical roaring. And honestly, that isolation is exactly where reality starts to break down. Piercing through the overwhelming roar of the factory, Amit began to hear something that should have been impossible. A faint, faded voice. He actually kept hearing it for 2, maybe 3 minutes, and it was drawing his attention toward the back gate, right near the workers' washroom. Naturally, he logically assumed, well, it's probably a sick coworker asking for help, right? So Amit steps away from his station, walks out toward the platform, and calls out to his friend. But the voice wasn't his friend. Suddenly, the sensory details just escalate out of nowhere. The moment Amit realized no one was out there, the single bulb hanging over the washroom violently burst. Boom! Plunged into pitch darkness. And immediately, he's hit with this severely foul smell. Amit rushes back to his machine, heart absolutely pounding out of his chest, trying to rationalize the whole thing. But then, as he glances into the silver reflective surface of his machine, he sees it. A towering 6 to 7 foot tall man standing directly behind him, just staring. Then comes the physical escalation. 3 rapid, brutal steps. Before Amit can even fully process what's in the reflection, the entire factory's lights die. Total darkness. Then, physical contact. This entity grabs Amit and violently slams his head straight into the heavy factory machinery, before just throwing him backward onto the concrete. In that split second, Amit realizes this wasn't just some random attack. This was a violent, direct warning. Whatever this thing was, it was telling him to get out of that factory, right then and there. Obviously, Amit didn't hesitate. He scrambled toward the exit as fast as he could. But as he's fleeing the factory floor, he looks back and sees something that totally anchors the entire mystery of this haunting. He sees someone standing right outside the upstairs office, just watching him run. Now, the crucial detail here is that this upstairs office was strictly off-limits. It was always locked from the outside. Nobody was supposed to be up there. Keep that little detail in the back of your mind because it is absolutely central to the puzzle we're going to solve at the end. So, by the next morning, a pretty stark contrast emerges. Amit wakes up suffering from an inexplicably high fever and severe body aches. It was like a physical hangover from the encounter. His supervisor sees this and immediately orders him to go back to his village to rest up. Which brings us to the ride home. It's about 9 p.m. and Amit's coworker, Sonu, is driving him back on a Splendor bike. It's a 35-minute trip, and get this, they deliberately chose the normal route, going out of their way to avoid the 2 other roads that pass by local cemeteries. They were actively, consciously trying to avoid anything supernatural. But as it turns out, avoiding the cemetery just wasn't enough. As they're driving down this desolate, pitch-black rural road, completely isolated, they pass by a peepal tree. And from the branches, they hear this agonizing, continuous cry for help. The sheer, raw terror of hearing that wailing sound in the middle of nowhere was so profound that Sonu completely slammed on the brakes. He refused to finish the drive to his own village. He was so shaken, he stopped at Amit's house and insisted on crashing there for the night. And that leads us straight into the terrifying events at 1 a.m. Amit jolts awake to the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps, like 3 or 4 sets of them just running frantically around on the roof of his house. He reaches for his phone, turns on the flashlight to wake up Sonu, and completely freezes. Right above where Sonu is sleeping, a shadowy figure is literally manifesting on the ceiling, and then violent kicking starts raining down from the ceiling right above the figure. Amit was so paralyzed by absolute panic, he just hid under his blanket. He was completely unable to even utter a word to warn his friend. So the very next day, Amit's terrified family takes him to a Malvi at a local shrine, and this healer delivers a truly chilling diagnosis. The number 4 is absolutely critical here. The Malvi reveals that there aren't just random ghosts at that water factory, there are exactly 4 wandering spirits. 4 entities who died prematurely, and now they are desperately seeking a human body to inhabit. To protect Amit, the Malvi prescribes a very specific spiritual protocol. Amit had to drink holy water continuously for 11 days and wear a sacred black thread. And you know what? The fascinating part is that this actually worked for him. His fever broke, his health completely normalized. But the horror wasn't actually defeated. It was just shifting its focus. Since Amit was protected, the entities had chosen a brand new target, Sonu. When Amit finally went to check in on his friend, Sonu recounted this incredibly horrifying hallucination. He told Amit, "I woke up and saw my dead body. My cousin's eyes went completely white." Sonu described waking up totally paralyzed, forced to watch helplessly as his own family cried around his corpse, while his cousin literally prepared his funeral bier. And when Sonu finally managed to ask his cousin what was going on, the cousin slowly turns to him and his eyes are rolled back, solid white. It was this severe psychological break, designed entirely to just crush Sonu's spirit. And then, the attacks quickly turn physical. Sonu detailed how he got up to get some water from his kitchen late at night, only to find the doorway completely blocked by 4 tall entities. They literally threw him onto his bed and beat him severely. And this wasn't just in his head. When Amit visited, he physically verified this. He saw severe bruising and these deep, ragged nail scratches completely covering Sonu's back. The psychological torment had fully escalated into a brutal physical assault. Okay, so Amit rushes Sonu back to the Malvi, right? But the situation rapidly spirals way out of control. The second the Malvi starts his prayers, 5 or 6 terrifying, overlapping voices erupt from within Sonu. It completely overpowered the local healer. So the Malvi sends them to a much more powerful tantric. And there, according to the source, Sonu literally levitates while these voices are just screaming abuse. Recognizing how incredibly dangerous this was, the tantric demands 4 roosters and sets up a high-stakes sacrifice for the upcoming new moon night. Meanwhile, back at the factory, the place was still an absolute hive of paranormal activity. Ahmet, who was back working a day shift, somehow convinces 2 coworkers to sneak into that locked upstairs office with him, the exact spot where he saw the Watcher. Once they got inside, they found thick dust covering everything. Everything that is, except for fresh footprints planted squarely on a dusty office chair. And then, a physical manifestation. The office fan suddenly clicks on by itself. They physically tried to switch it off, but it just kept spinning. The presence in that room was so heavy and oppressive, they just had to flee. The entities haunting the factory were definitely getting bolder. Case in point, at 5 a.m., in a totally separate encounter, the teenage son of the factory's cleaning lady is at the back basin brushing his teeth. Suddenly, he's approached by this grotesque figure. We're talking a towering, incredibly broad man with extremely long nails, wild hair, and one entire side of his face is just pitch black. The kid understandably fainted on the spot. When his terrified mother finally found him, she packed up their things and they fled the factory forever. Let's jump back to Sonu, because the night of the new moon ritual had finally arrived, and the source material here gets pretty grim. After the tantric sacrificed the 4 roosters, Sonu, or, well, the entities controlling him, leaps up and brutally tears these raw chickens apart. He was frantically devouring the raw meat like he'd been starved for years. It's a truly visceral scene. The tantric did manage to temporarily bind the spirits using mantras and blessed sugar candy, but he left the family with a very dark warning. A much larger ritual, requiring multiple priests, was going to be needed to actually save him. What follows over the next 6 days is just a horrific, incredibly rapid decay. For the first 2 days, the sugar candy actually worked. He seemed fine. But by day 3, the intense fever came roaring back. By day 5, he was entirely possessed again, speaking in multiple voices and dangerously standing right on the edge of his roof. And by day 6, it was a complete physical and mental collapse. His body had shriveled up literally as if these entities were sucking the life out of him, and he was tragically reduced to consuming his own waste. Out of sheer desperation, Sonu's family made a fatal mistake. That evening, they openly discussed their plan to bring in a powerful priest the very next morning to finally purge these entities once and for all. The absolute tragedy here is that the spirits inside Sonu, they were listening. The next morning, when his family went in to wake him up, they found Sonu dead in his bed. The entities had claimed him before the priest could even walk through the door. So you have to ask yourself, why did all of this happen? What was the actual root cause? Well, the answer brings us right back to the number 4. Following Sonu's tragic passing, local lore revealed a massive twist that ties this entire haunting together perfectly. It turns out that years ago, the owner of that exact packaged water factory had murdered 4 of his own workers, and he buried their bodies secretly right there on the factory grounds. And this, right here, reveals the exact mechanics of the haunting. The factory owner knew the spirits of these murdered men were furious. So every single year, he had his brother perform a protective havan, basically a ritual to keep the spirits contained. But 2 years ago, that brother died under very mysterious circumstances. And where did they find his body? In that locked upstairs office. The exact same office where Amit saw the Watcher. With the brother dead, those annual protective rituals stopped completely. The spirits broke free, they eventually claimed Sonu, and today, that factory sits completely abandoned, its shutters permanently pulled down. Which really leaves us with this final, genuinely chilling thought. Yes, the factory is completely abandoned now, but the curse itself remains completely uncontained. Those protective havens haven't been performed in years, which means those 4 restless entities are still out there, entirely unbound. So the real question isn't just about what happened in Susandha, it's about what happens next. When the rituals stop, who will the spirits claim next? Thank you so much for exploring this dark narrative with us today. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.